Well, I want to take you on to expeditions because that's what I'm leading typically. Expeditions with me, they go um, into typically uncharted territory. They can be quite exciting, as initially these expeditions may lead you into places such as a jungle. Don't know where we're going. I'm typically taking the route that the others do not expect. I'm leading you maybe in the canopy rather than on the ground for the particular purpose so that you're getting new perspectives, perspectives that otherwise would not be accessible. This is where typically my research is going. Hopefully at the end, of course, I can offer you some new heights, some new views from there, and that is something that is very exciting. So common things of my expeditions are that they are cognitively motivated, that they hopefully lead sometimes to something technologically useful. They should be implementable, although oftentimes I am not the one who actually does the implementation. Not even my graduate students working with me are the ones who do the implementations. It's maybe what happens in the later life, like with Chris, or maybe it's been also that standards bodies have taken up results of my work later on. But they are all typically related to spatial representations, which is the core of my work. So let me show you a few things where I have been in the past. And the particular reason for that is I want to show you also some of the places that I might revisit in the future. Because sometimes, although I've been there, these have been exciting expeditions, and they could lead us to new things. Naive geography was one of the themes of these expeditions, and it was really a thrilling experience to see how this topic has been picked up by the research community. In the same way, the geospatial semantic web has been a thrilling topic that everyone is talking nowadays about that. And with Chris, I have enjoyed smart maps as a particularly exciting overall theme. Now, within these topics, a number of particular specific things have been successful. For instance, in interaction, I've looked at such things as the geographer's desktop, which, as you can see here, is actually a quite dated thing. Look how old this must be. This is OS 9, right? But on the other hand, it gives a good example of some of the things that one can think of to bring all over from some disciplines and to instill something particularly spatial at the interaction level. Certainly, spatial query by sketch is another interface interaction aspect that shows the same principle here. And then the eye pointer, we shouldn't forget that, as maybe the most successful interaction thing that I've ever worked on. Looked at such things as formalisms of spatial relations, and you've heard probably about something like the 9 intersection or the direction relation matrix, which are both things that have been picked up quite a bit. And I'm telling you these things that, although I've visited them in the past, going back to them is sometimes very rewarding as one looks after several years with quite different eyes at the same things. In the domain of spatial reasoning, for instance, looked at compositions of topological relations, which was actually a great foundation for doing things that otherwise would not have been possible, such as compositions of topology with directions, or ultimately the image schemata-based and motivated container surface algebra. And was at COSIT a few weeks ago. There was a paper on image schemata formalizations. It shows that this is still a really interesting and exciting research topic. And finally, in semantics, I've led expeditions that dealt with models for comparing for similarity, and both of them, the scene similarity as well as the matching distance model, have been very successful over the last few years. So those who have participated here, those are the graduate students where they ended up and where they are nowadays. They're in industry and they are at many prestigious places where they are either faculty or staff members nowadays, and that shows you what can be done when you're working on these topics in the future. Now, where is this expedition going? 3 more minutes to go. I want to go into a direction where spatial theories for more intelligent systems are built. And for me, this is something that I want to call computational spatial intelligence. And it differs quite a bit from what I've been doing in the past, because it focuses on the systems themselves and on their, not only on their correctness, but on their internal robustness, and on not so much on how cognitively adequate they are, but how the systems themselves can be further exploited. And in this domain here, I see currently, from my perspective, 3 things that I want to address there. Namely, I want to look into anisotropic space. In the past, we've looked primarily at spaces that are flat and they are equal in all directions. But geographic space is not like that. And therefore, I think there's a big challenge for this expedition here, a new target, namely the anisotropic space. And the same thing I said, we're looking at flat space. I want to look also at the surface of the sphere, because I think that is a very different setting that for many global applications has an absolute need to overcome some of the limitations from the planar view. And finally, of course, temporal cannot be missing here. And my particular interest here is on cyclically repeating aspects. Looking at time that has cycles. Here are, for instance, observations about surface temperature of a lake. And of course, you see the cycle in it. But there is another cycle in it, namely, this is the daily cycle in which the temperature goes up and down. So what we have is actually, we have multicyclic time. And that multicyclic time has a great potential to be mapped actually onto a splinky, namely the repetition that comes, and if you close that, you get a torus. So at the end, I want to investigate more how one can do very interesting things with tori, or since this is recursive, it could be actually a torus of nested tori. In the end, semantics cannot be missing on my agenda, right? Ontologies are a hot topic, but I want to put ontologies within actually a spatial framework. And these are not spatial ontologies here, but these are ontologies in general. And by spatializing these ontologies, what I think through the terrain metaphor, one can achieve quite new things here. One can, for instance, put into such a setting here, one can put into the landscapes radial categories like what Lakoff was promoting. And you could have on such a landscape, for instance, then the classification of birds with the robin at the center and the penguin much further removed. And the landscape metaphor provides the opportunities to think about peaks, to think about ridges, to think about steepness, which might be actually a very sharp delineation of one category to another. So, well, what about future expeditions? There are certainly a number of things that can be done in the future, but I could go to a number of places, but time's running out.